Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross from PTCGRadio, and I'm back with another game from PTCGO. This time, this is my very first ever game, playing with the Seniors US National Champion list with Empoleon Dusknoir Miltank. Now, I'm going to admit straight off, this is not the best game I've ever played. There are a few mistakes, but when I make these deck breakdowns of winning decks, I do like to make a point of putting up the first game I played, unless it's a really horrific game. So I thought I would just stick it up there, see how it runs straight away. And it's not, embarrassing, but there are some things that I could have done slightly better. I'll point them out as we go along. It's still very much worth watching, and it's still very much a video which shows you this deck and how it works and all that good stuff. So I'm going to start off with a Miltank there, which is a decent start. In fact, to be honest, it's probably my best starter there. And I'm not obviously going to bench the Jirachi because I want to bench him and use Stellar Guidance in a little while. My opponent, on the other hand, doesn't quite have the same good fortune as I, so he has got to start Jirachi. I get to go first. I get to pop me Tropical Beach down, which is lovely. And what I am going to do here is I'm going to Skylar, and a lot of different stuff I can get there. But I'm going to get myself a level ball. Now, you could argue either way this was good or bad, but to be honest with you, I need to get myself an Empoleon, like I said in my deck breakdown, and if you haven't seen my deck breakdown, I would recommend going back and watching that. Empoleon really is the lifeblood of this deck. So by popping down the Empoleon, the Piplup, then I'm trying to maximise my chances of getting a turn to Empoleon, because if I can get a turn to Empoleon, then first of all I've got draw power to run me through the next few turns, and secondly, of course, my Miltank can be doing 100 next turn, assuming he doesn't drop a Tool Scrapper or Startling Megaphone. So I am playing against a Yveltal deck here, and they get the turn 1 laser, because they always get the turn 1 laser. It happens. Now he's playing a second laser. He either really wants me asleep, or far more likely, he is about to play a Juniper, which of course he does. You'll notice his Yveltal on the bench has got a bunch of energy on, and if he can get that Jirachi out of the active spot, he's going to kill my Miltank, and I'm going to be in trouble. You'll see I'm playing not against a Garbodor list here. Garbodor would be a real pain, but I'm playing against a Raichu Yveltal. Now, Raichu's not particularly great, because if he gets a full bench, he's KOing any of my Pokemon. Except for Dusknoir, which is weak to Dark. So, I'm getting a second Miltank down, and I'm getting a second energy on, an energy on that second one. Now, here you could argue either way this is a good play or not a good play. I think it's the best play to make at the time. So I'm going for Skylar, and I'm going to get myself an Ultra Ball, because if I get an Ultra Ball, then I can get myself an Empoleon. And that's going to be, like I said, fuel for the rest of the game. Now, one of the things you'll notice straight away here, is the discarding can be a real pain for this deck if you don't have Execute out, which I don't. So I did get rid of the Prinplup, because I can always Super Rod it back later, and I got rid of an energy, because although I'm only playing 6, I can pop an energy onto that Miltank, so it's not the end of the world. I'm then going to Diving Draw a Super Rod. I play 2, so I can maybe justify that. And not drawing anything too useful, I'm going to KO and get 2 prizes, which means I've now got a pretty nice hand going on there. I'm going to need my second Super Rod soon, but this is, I suppose, another reason why the deck plays 2 Super Rod. The discarding with all the Ultra Balls, Diving Draw, etc. can get very onerous until you've got that Execute in the discard pile. Now, he is going to end me to 4. I'm not terribly worried. As I said in my deck breakdown, this deck is consistent. Not only am I playing 13 supporters and 2 Tropical Beach, but I've also got an Empoleon out with Diving Draw. So I know this turn, he's going to get a prize, but I've got my Miltank out. I'm definitely going to be doing 100 with Miltank. I've got my Empoleon, and you see there I've got 4 supporters. So it really is not bad at all. Now, that is a second thing you could argue with in this deck. In this game, even watching this back the second time, I am convinced that was the correct play. If you looked at my setup, I needed a Duskull, I needed a second Piplup, I needed a spare Miltank, because he's going to be getting KOs turn after turn. My 100 HP Miltanks are going to be KO'd either by a laser or a muscle band. Now he's going to go for a catcher there, clearly hunting the Dust Skull, because I've said how important that is, but he hits tails. What that does do, however, is put me on notice that he's going to be trying to get that Dust Skull later on. So if I get a chance, I'll get a second one down. But the best other option I had in that previous turn was Colressing to 5. Now, by playing the Juniper, what I'm able to do is firstly get rid of 2 ends, which I don't want if I'm taking a big lead, because I help my opponent more than me, and also drawing 7 cards, not 5. So you could argue that was a bad play, but truth be told, even looking in hindsight, I would argue that's a good play. So he gets the laser, which means he is again going to be able to get the KO with Y Cyclone, which means he's going to be able to preserve that energy. And you can see here he's going pretty full on Raichu, and the reason of course is that Raichu's getting 1-hit KOs on my Pokemon without getting too much energy on the field. Now here, my earlier gamble playing Juniper last turn has paid off lovely. I've got myself a second Empoleon. Not only that, but I've got myself a bunch of supporters. Now here I'm going to diving draw, and I'm going to diving draw the Skylar. I'm looking for an energy. And you see there, that worked out beautifully, because now I get to use my second diving draw and get rid of my execute. The reason I'm diving drawing before using my supporter is for exactly what's happening here. I want to try and get an extra bench Pokemon so that I can Colress for more. It's as simple as that. That's very much what I'm going for here. So I can now Colress for 8, and that massively improves the chances of drawing a energy, and of course I did draw the energy. And one of the things I want to point out here is just how brilliantly this deck is running. This is my first game, and I admitted right at the beginning I'm no expert with this deck, although I've played a lot of Empoleon decks. Little known thing, Empoleon is one of my favourite, very favourite Pokemon. He's in me top 6. We have a top 6 because Pokemon come in parties of 6. So I've mucked around with Empoleon a lot, but not this particular deck, and not against an Evil Town matchup. But even bearing that in mind, I've now got 2 Empoleon. I've got my Dusknoir out. I've got my Miltank. Now, the one thing I haven't been able to do is get a second Miltank, but I'm not terribly worried about that. He's going to have to get a Raichu out in order to kill my Empoleon in one hit, and if he does, I've got spare attackers. So, truth be told, I'm really not worried. Because, I've got our Miltank down. I've got a spare Empoleon to be attacking with. I've got a Piplup to try and turn into an Empoleon. And if my opponent starts taking more prizes, then I can just get another Miltank down kind of as and when. Now here I'm going to Dowsing Machine, and I'm going to get rid of my N. Again, N at this stage of the game I'm not really needing. I've got 2 Empoleon out, so it's certainly not the end of the world to get rid of them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use it to grab back my Super Rod. Like I said in my deck breakdown, I like Dowsing Machine because it gives me options in a deck like this. Essentially, I'm looking and thinking, I'm playing 6 energy, 1's on the board, 3 are in the discard pile, there's only 2 left, so let's Dowsing Machine for a Super Rod, get that energy back in there so that I can continue to be attacking. Simple as that. So, yes, I've had to do some brutal discards, but look at my board now. I've got my Miltank, I've got 2 Empoleon, a Piplup ready to turn into a 3rd, I've got my Dusknoir. So, to be perfectly honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I had to go through the brutal discards, but looking in hindsight, I don't think I did anything too badly. And again, if you see something you didn't like, stick it in the comments. I may not agree with you, but I would happily, hear your opinions on that. But I'm set up. And we're not far into the game here. And this is what I just love about this list. There are very few things in Pokemon that make me quite as happy as a consistent deck that sets up. Now, here, I'm using Sinister Hand, moving energy, damage around. Now, what you're going to see here is me change my mind. I do remember this bit of the game quite clearly. Initially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put energy around all of his Pokemon. But then it occurs to me that actually, what's the point in doing that. I think he had 100 damage. It's a shame it wasn't 120, because that would be enough to kill both the Pikachus. But if I just move the damage around, that's not actually doing me any good, because I know he plays catcher. It's a fair shout that he plays Lysandre, which means he's going to try and kill my Dusknoir. So if I put a few damage on each Pokemon on the bench, it's not really doing me any good, because I don't need the damage on them. All of those Pokemon are going to be fairly easily one-hit KO'd, except for Bouffalon, but I can't imagine he's going to be attacking with Bouffalon. It's going to do 60 for free energy. It's really good against EXs. It ain't that good against non-EXs. So, truth be told, you know, he's going to be attacking with his Raichus, and Raichus are going to be easily one-hit by Empoleon or by Miltank. So I don't need any energy on them. So I changed my tactics slightly, and what I'm going to try and do here is start actually KOing that Pikachu with the Muscle Band. He needs, essentially, to do 7 damage to KO my Empoleon. Let's say he gets a Virbank Laser, and he's already got the Virbank out. He needs to do 60 damage, which means he's going to need 3 bench Pokemon, or 2 bench Pokemon, and a Muscle Band. Now the chances of him whiffing that are actually very, very slim, but at least if I knock out the Pikachu with a Muscle Band, he's got to get a Muscle Band, or he's got to get another bench Pokemon in order to get the KO with Empoleon. Now, I'm going to make probably the only thing that I would consider a proper mistake in this game now, and I'm going to leave too much energy on the Yveltal, which is a bit silly. I believe I actually leave too much energy on the Yveltal and don't get the exact KO. Sorry, yeah, so I could have put more energy on him, but, you know, or I could have spread it around. Essentially, what I could have done was, you know, put a bunch of damage on the Bouffalon, etc. It means that I'm going to overkill the Yveltal here if he kills my Dusknoir. There's a Lysandre, there's a Dusknoir going down. But, and that's the thing which I would consider a misplay. All the discarding early game may have looked brutal, but I think I've been vindicated in this game by the fact that the deck's set up lovely. So I'm going to overkill this Yveltal here, but actually, when you look at it, I'm not too worried about overkilling the Yveltal, because first of all, I essentially had 50 damage to play with. That 50 damage wasn't actually enough to do anything, and then my Dusknoir went down, so that 50 damage was essentially always going to be wasted. I could have left that 50 damage on the Raichu or the Bouffalon, but then if I leave it on the Bouffalon or the Raichu, then I'm still going to one-hit them later in the game anyway. So I'm hoping this makes sense. Essentially, I'm overkilling the Yveltal, which is something you try and avoid with Dusknoir decks, but the alternative was leave a random 50 damage on something and overkill that instead. So, actually I take back what I said at the beginning. This isn't that badly a played game. It just seems quite bad because of the brutal discarding and the fact that I can't use Sinister Hand as much as I want. But let's look at my setup for a second here. I've got 2 Empoleon, I've got a Miltank, I've got a Super Rod and a Ultra Ball there to get more Miltanks out. We're even on prizes. I'm about to go down to 1 prize. You know, I'm going to win this game. And he sees that and concedes. I was about to go down to 1 prize and win it on the following turn. So although he's conceded, that game was mine. So what can we say about this deck? It sets up, it is consistent, it rolls. Yeah, the discard's a little bit brutal, and yeah, Sinister Hand can be a little bit of a pain to work out properly, and then you end up wasting stuff like I did in this game, but it wasn't really my fault, etc. But it's a consistent deck, and it works quite nicely. As always, like this if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't done so already, tell your friends, and I will be back shortly with more lovely videos of all things Pokemon Trading Card Game. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.